Good evening and welcome, everyone. I love hearing all the chatter, the community connections that are happening here. This is truly a beautiful community event. Thank you for being here. I want to start us with a land acknowledgement. The San Francisco Public Library acknowledges that we occupy the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who are the original inhabitants of San Francisco Peninsula. We recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. As uninvited guests, we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples and wish to pay respects to the ancestors, the elders, and the relatives of the Ramaytush community. Thank you. So hi, everyone. In case you don't know me, my name is Christina Mitra, pronouns she, ella, and I'm the program manager of the James C. Hormel LGBTQI Center of San Francisco Public Library. We like to call ourselves the queerest library ever. Welcome. For 28 years, we have celebrated and honored the lived experiences and creativity of our beloved LGBTQIA+ community through our archives, our books, our exhibitions, and public programming like tonight's screening of Sally! In July 2023, we screened a work in progress in this room of this documentary, and we are so thrilled that you all had a chance to see it in June at Frameline 48. And we're so thankful to our partners at Frameline for this chance to have an encore screening free at the library. Woo! So I want to just let you know, in case you didn't know, that Frameline and SFPL have been great partners for many years. And us librarians and archivists, we are proud stewards of the Frameline collection, which is part of the Hormel archives. It contains over 5,000 films, some screened at festivals and some not, and all accessible to you all, just the general public. Everyone can access these through the SF History Center on the 6th floor of this building. So I welcome you to learn more. We've got information in the back, and we'd be happy to tell you all about it. So I won't take any more of your time, but I do want to say a few thank yous, which is thank you to the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library for their support of tonight's program. Thank you to our incredible media services and custodial teams for providing all the excellent background support to make our program shine. And thank you, of course, to Frameline for their partnership in tonight's program. Please note that we will be photographing as well as filming this event for our own archives and promotional purposes, but if you do not wish to be photographed, please let me or another staff member know. Without further ado, I would like to welcome to the stage Allegra Madsen, the Executive Director of Frameline, to the stage. Welcome, Allegra.
Thank you. I'm tall. How's it going? Yeah, thank you. Thank you to the Hormel Center. Thank you to the SF Public Library. This is the coolest library in the world. So yeah. Hello, welcome to this screening of Sally. I am Allegra, the Executive Director at Frameline. And Frameline is a year-round arts organization that puts on the largest and longest-running queer film festival in the world. Yeah. Our mission is nothing short of changing the world through the power of queer cinema. So how's everybody doing tonight? How are y'all doing? Yeah, good. I'm glad to hear it, but I tell you, I don't really know if I'm okay. This is what I mean. It's a story. I've been trying to arrange a time to go get burritos, like any good San Franciscan, with a friend of mine that I haven't seen in a while, and our schedules are all crazy, and it's hard to map it out, and we finally landed on the only time that we could get together would be on Wednesday, November 6th. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I can make plans after Tuesday. This election is really... It's hard, and it's like it is making November 5th into this point of no return, and it seems like everything rides on it. And after November 5th, I don't know who I'll be. I don't know, will we all still be here? Will I be the kind of person that goes out with friends? Do I still eat dinner? Do I still eat burritos? And that was kind of when I knew I'd lost my mind, because nothing stands between me and a good burrito. But November 5th may be the most important, highest stakes election of my lifetime, but it is very much a battle, and it is not the entire war. No matter the outcome, we will wake up on November 6th, we will carry on, we will have dinner with friends, and we will continue to need to fight for the rights of LGBTQ plus people everywhere. That will not change. So I just finished reading The Message by Ta-Nehisi Coates, who just did a City Arts and Lecture, which I missed, but I still read the book. And midway through the book, he says, politics is the art of the possible, but art creates the possible of politics. And I've been turning this over in my mind, and the stories that we tell shape the boundaries of our reality. The arts tell us what is possible and what isn't. And this is where Frameline kind of fits in. We exist to ensure that our queer stories are told, and that our queer histories and legacies are honored, and that there are queer voices shaping the future of our culture. So very much our world runs on money. No segue. You can really be creative if you can afford to. So every year, Frameline gives out completion funding to queer filmmakers to ensure that they can tell their stories. And this fund was created, I just love this story. This fund was created after a bunch of lesbians, angry at the lack of lesbian representation inside of our festival. They rioted and stormed the projection booth at the Roxy, right? And from this particular inflection point, Frameline established our completion fund to ensure that a diversity of stories could be told. And I am a pacifist, but I love this story about a group of militant lesbians. I imagine them in their cargo pants, but they're just dead set on changing the world. And I think maybe Sally would agree with me. And in homage to that Frameline lesbian riot, this year's completion fund grantees were all women, trans, and non-binary folks. And that included Deborah Craig and the Sally film team this year. So I am so glad to be screening it here tonight with you all. I wasn't able to introduce this film at the festival this year because I was all over the place. But I was originally really kind of nervous to screen this so close to the election. Obviously, I couldn't even make dinner plans, but I think this is exactly where we need to be, in a room full of queers, celebrating our legacy, celebrating our history of activism, celebrating Sally, who reminds us that that in the struggle, there's also room for joy. And so I'm just really excited to share this moment with all of you. And please help me welcome director Deborah Craig to the stage to give a little context for the film. Also, go get your Sally merch.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to be super brief so we can get straight to the film, but it's so wonderful to see all your faces here, some old friends, some new friends. And I think what the message I hope you get from Sally is pretty much what Allegra was saying. Depending on what happens in the election, we might need to fight like hell again, but Sally would do it with a smile and have a lot of fun while she was at it. And so with that, I'm going to just leave it, and we're going to have some Q&A after the film so you can ask questions about things like how did you meet Sally, what the hell happened to Sally's car, and things like that.
The world can be saved. So if you all just want to introduce yourselves, I guess.
My name is Deborah. I'm the director and co-producer of the film Sally, and could not have done it without the folks with me and plenty of the folks in the audience too.
Can we get a little louder, maybe?
My name is Jörg. I'm Jörg Fokeli. I'm the co-producer and co-director with Deborah.
And I'm Ruth Mahaney, the one in the pink shirt. and a friend of Sally's. And I just want to say this is Sally's T-shirt. We found it in her closet. We think it must have been from her Senate race. I don't know, but anyway, I thought it appropriate.
Perfect. So I'm just gonna start because you teased this. What happened to Sally's truck?
What happened to Sally's truck? Well, dogs and trees were more important than people in Sally's world. And when Sally would go to yoga, her dog Bodhi had to stay in the car, and so ate the car, and that was okay with Sally. Just when we went on a ride, there weren't any seats with it because the remaining seat was left for Bodhi. But that was just kind of a Sally thing. I mean, Sally was very funny, very quirky, and not like anybody else. Genuinely, it wasn't an affect.
How did you get involved in this project? How did you meet Sally? How did this become a movie? What's the origin story?
So the origin story, I'll try to keep it brief, was pretty much of a coincidence, and I also think that's sort of a wonderful thing and a cautionary tale as well, because it was a coincidence that I met Sally and we were able to tell her story, and how sad that would be if it hadn't happened. And I met her, I teach public health. I was working on a lesbian health project, and I decided to make a movie about lesbians and aging. So my previous short, which also showed at Frameline, was called A Great Ride. And Sally was in that, and a bunch of other women, some women in Santa Rosa, et cetera. And people who looked at the footage of Sally either said, "That's Sally Gearhart, she's amazing," or they said, "Who's that? She's amazing, I want to know more about her." So as soon as I finished the short, we just started right away on making a feature-length documentary about Sally. I had gotten a much better sense of really how important she was, and that here was this woman who was in her 80s, kind of living in this cabin tucked away in the woods. And, a lot of people knew about her but didn't know what had happened to her because she was kind of off the scene and off the radar. And then Jorg jumped in, and our co-producer, and it's like, we have to make this film and figure out a way to make it happen.
Well, I really appreciate that initiative because I am one of the people that did not know about her, and I can't tell you how important it is and how thirsty we are for these kinds of stories. So I really appreciate that. But I really wanted you to highlight, how long was this in the making?
Longer than my partner was happy about. So a lot of times the most important projects in our lives are things that we have no idea where they'll end up, how long they'll take, or anything like that, and it's a very good thing. So I started making this documentary short in 2014, and started the Sally film in 2018, and then we just finished it this summer. And it was a kind of a mountain I had no idea I could climb. So you just keep going, because my main focus was just this film has to get finished. You don't know, as an independent filmmaker, I mean, there might be filmmakers in the audience. I certainly know there's artists in the audience. It's not an easy environment to make any kind of art there. I don't know. I'm confused. There aren't Hollywood producers knocking down my door to make a film about this radical lesbian who said kind of crazy, outrageous things about men that, like, I saw a few guys walk out, and I'm like, uh-oh.
They'll be okay. They're okay.
And most of the guys I know, gay men and straight men, it makes me so happy that they love Sally and laugh with Sally, don't get their feathers ruffled, but are just like, she was just trying to wake us up. So it is a long journey, and I guess that's a message too, is it's a long journey to make anything, make a piece of art, make a difference in the world. And Sally had a long journey. I'd love learning more about her story. The people who knew Sally, even people like Ruth are like, wait, I didn't know this. I didn't know that. I didn't know Sally had a half brother. I didn't know that. And so I felt humbled constantly because I met people like Ruth, who met Sally in 1970, and people like Pat Winks in the movie, who met Sally in 1948. And so I had to keep my eyes and ears wide open all the time. At the same time, I felt like my job was to tie all those threads together, because so many of those people, I don't know if any more than one or two of Sally's friends had ever been to Virginia. And it felt really, really important to go to Virginia. And yes, we did see Confederate statues.
I'm from Virginia, so I've seen them. Ruth, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. Almost to a person in the film, there was a moment where people were like, well, I'm not going to tell you that story about Sally. So I was wondering if there was any story that you could share with us that perhaps didn't make it into the film. She is just such a character. I'm thirsty for all the stories.
Okay, very quick. Sally was part of my coming out story. Not in the way you might think, but that I was spending the night at this woman's house. I was visiting and in San Francisco, and we got home from going to an anti-war demonstration where we marched in the gay contingent, went to a lesbian picnic. This was 1971. And got home to her house, and her roommate's cat had peed on the sleeping bag I was supposed to use. So what's a girl to do? So the next morning, we were had a very wonderful night, and the woman I was with got up and went across the room and picked up the phone and called Sally Gearhart. And that's the story I was telling in the film, where she said, where both of us are saying, Sally, I did it. And I thought, and Sally, out of the phone came this scream that was Sally, of congratulations. But and welcome and all of that. So I thought, who on earth is this woman? This voice just filled the room. So.
Don't we all wish we could celebrate like that? Jorg, I'm going to I'll ask one more question, then maybe we'll toss a few to the audience. But so I wanted to ask you, what's happening with the film itself now? What are the next steps for Sally? Where can folks tell their friends to see it, and all of those things?
Funny, you should ask that. Well, first of all, Sally is making the festival rounds right now. We just got our 5th award just today. We found out at the Seattle Queer Film Festival. We are in talks with, we've talked to a few distribution companies, including Frameline, which has a fantastic
great
distribution.
Organization.
And we're also working on an impact campaign. That's actually why we continue to raise money. You saw a mock-up of a poster outside when you first came in. That's just a first crappy draft that we did today at FedEx real quick, but we want to get a real poster printed out to send out. That's going to cost money. We're working on information for classrooms, universities, community groups, etc., that they can use in connection with the film. And we have an agency that does exactly that kind of work. All that is going to cost money. So we are going to continue to raise money until we've had it up to here. But because, Deborah always says, why do we spend 6 years of our lives on a film if we don't then continue getting it out into the world? So, so that's kind of, the short of it. That's where we are with the film. It's not over yet. We thought when the film was done, when it was cut and showed at Frameline, the worst is over, but we're still going.
Kind of just starts, and it took almost a decade to make the film. It's an important film, and it is a film about community. So I think an impact campaign is a great thing to do. I'm sure you will have a lot of supporters when it officially launches. Do let us know, and hopefully we can give you a shout out and connect everyone. But I do want to throw it to the audience now. Do we have any questions? If you want to shout it, or actually, there's a magic mic.
It was just so emotional. Like, I really felt at the end, the end of a movie is pretty much always supposed to make you emotional, but I was really tearing up because, I felt the tears were about to come because she's the kind of person we all need, and that if there aren't people like her, then it's really hard for most people to feel the confidence to be part of this kind of movement or to even start this kind of movement and to make these really important messages be heard. And she's so funny. She's so fucking funny. And she's so confident and charismatic, and she's so loving of everyone. It's like, we need more people like that in every world problem, like every movement addressing every world problem. So my question for you is, in what space did she have the most influence? In what space, in your opinion, did she have the most profound influence on those around her, especially men? Like, was it in academia that she had the deepest influence on men to help them, be open-minded? Or was it in her political activism? Or was it with the individual relationships that she had, whether it was with husbands of her friends or like relatives or something like that? I mean, which space was she able to, really spread herself and her amazing ideas?
That's a great question, and I do have to say I'm so happy that's my neighbor Elizabeth, and I love having young people come to see Sally, because I've just been so convinced, and I wasn't sure I was convinced or deluded that Sally would appeal to young people. Sally had some kind of magic where she could connect with people. She was so radical and said so many outrageous things that seemed potentially alienating to people, but really Sally was all about connecting. And I think Sally had an impact with anybody she met. And that Sally, and Sally was this bundle of contradictions, and she was okay with that. So she was this lesbian separatist who always had men in her life, and she had, and we really wanted to show that in the film. So even though we got occasional pushback from opinionated lesbians, who I've met a few of, we were very, very committed to making sure men were in the film. And I heard from many men what an impact Sally had on their life. Many gay men, what an impact Sally had on their life, and what an impact feminism had on their life to help liberate them. And the patriarchy or toxic masculinity or whatever you want to call it is toxic for us all, okay? But Sally's magic was that ability to connect. She had this magic of throwing verbal bombs and kind of waking people up like, what? Did she just really say that? But her magic also was to say it with a smile and say it with charm and say it in a way that wasn't with acrimony. And so that's why we were so, talked to Allegra about this and so many other folks. We were so convinced that we needed to bring it out now, and so convinced it had to come out before the election, and are busy saying I'm not religious, I'm saying prayers, because we need to channel that way of like really fighting and really believing and really not hating other people and trying to understand the people who we differ from. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but Sally, she was complicated also. So she affected people in academia because she was in academia. She affected people because she was an activist. She affected people because she lived in this little community, and there were a lot of people in that community that were lesbians, and a lot of people in that community that were loggers and were straight and were Republicans. And she wanted to talk to all of them. And one of the things that we are working on this little handout for our impact campaign, and one of the questions we wrote is, do you have people in your life who are different from you or who think differently than you? And she did, and not enough of us do. And I think that's one of our problems. So, do you have something?
It was when she mentioned opinionated lesbians, if that jogs your memory.
I guess for me it would be really hard to choose a place where she had the most effect. I teach also, and a lot of my students, she's made a huge difference in their lives. She's the person that really roped me into getting involved in almost everything I got involved in. And, you know, my students, both men and women, learning about her, having this image of, you know, that they too could be, because she never made it look like you couldn't do what I'm doing. You know, she always was, you know, even though she was so charismatic, she still made it look possible that, you know, you could be part of this and do this also, and do important things too. So thanks for the question, though. Thank you.
And you know, let me just add one quick thing. Regardless of the different movements she profoundly influenced, I think Allegra brought it up earlier. We have this election in a week. I don't think I can think of anyone else, anyone who, like Sally, had this ability to talk to people who really were completely different from her, who had values, who stood against everything that she believed in, and yet she talked to them. And she did it with a smile. Just, you know, think about the footage that we saw from the Briggs Initiative, where with a smile she tells them, well, the FBI says this, and the Council on Families, and blah, blah, blah. She did it with a smile. Deborah always tells this anecdote where Sally at some point, maybe you should tell it, the Briggs Initiative, but the bottom line is, I can't think of anybody else. And here's this woman that, you know, was 90 years old, and she represented something that I wish we had more of.
I will. You know what? We're gonna walk out, and we can. I'll make sure you get to ask your question. I'm gonna wrap it up. I want to thank you all for being here. I think in our current polarized moment, this is a perfect person to celebrate right now. And you know, if we had more amazing pieces of documentation of women in history like this, maybe we wouldn't be having a hard time electing a woman president this year. So I want to thank you all, and thanks.
Thank you, everybody.